Guess who's back? Back again. Me if I can actually get these videos out.
Hello, I'm Ultimate Reviews of Ultimate Animation, and Netflix impresses me by managing to make stupid decisions after stupid decisions, especially in regards to animation, only to pull me back by being the distributors of some seriously amazing films. Seriously, they've been the place to go for original, and in many cases groundbreaking animated films for the past couple of years. And this year was no exception with 2023's Nimona, and I am so fucking excited to talk about this movie, man. First, a little backstory. Nimona, based off the webcomic turned graphic novel of the same name by N.D. Stevenson, was announced to be adapted for a film version by Blue Sky Studios, the most consistently inconsistent studio, and was set for release in 2020. But following Disney absorbing its parent company, 20th Century Fox, the production of the film received severe pushback from Disney executives due to its LGBTQ themes. Old habits die hard, eh, Disney? And after promptly dismantling Blue Skies in 2021, the film was cancelled. However, the animation gods went, fuck that, this film needs to exist, or something like that, because Annapurna Pictures revived the project the following year with Nick Bruno and Troy Quinn as directors, DNEG Animation providing animation, and Netflix acquiring worldwide distribution. So this film has been in development hell, clearly that must have hindered the film on release, or maybe not. Yeah, how's queer element affecting the worldwide market now, dipshits? Anyway, enough about the stupidity of networks. How's this film turned out? In my opinion, calling it now, this is tied with Spider-Verse for the best film of the year. And not to say I'm not excited for what's coming, I'm still optimistic for the films that's coming out, but this film is so impressive, I don't think anything will top it for me. I could still be proven wrong, but that's what I'm calling now, and I'll explain why. First things first, what is it about? Well, Nimona takes place in an arcane, Korra-esque high fantasy future where knights are trained to protect the kingdom and hunt monsters, supposedly deadly creatures that live just outside the walls of the city. One of these knights, Ballister Blackheart, that's such a good name, is framed for a crime he didn't commit, losing his arm in the process. While he tries to prove his innocence, he comes across a shape-shifting ball of chaos named Nimona, who mistakes him for a bad guy and wants to be his villain sidekick. To be fair, villain sidekicks are usually better than the villains themselves. And together they try to work to prove the corruption in the system, and honestly I should stop there. Spoiling the plot might ruin it. If you haven't seen it yet, go watch it any way you can, pause this video, maybe drop a like so you can find it again, and then come back because it's really worth it. You good? Good. Firstly, much like Puss in Boots 2 or Arlo the Alligator Boy, the movie takes full advantage of the fact that it's animated. It has another hybrid-esque style that makes the characters both very expressive, but also solid, like they're really interacting with their environment, which definitely helps the action which comprises a lot of the movie. The movements, not just on Nimona but on all the characters, is just stellar. The hybrid style really lends itself to some memorable, energetic movements. The facial expressions are also incredible, especially on Nimona, as they can obviously twist and shape their face any way they want. The facial expressions on her are like a mix between One Piece and Mitchell's First to the Machines, and they just crack me up. When I saw the trailer, I wasn't sure they would do enough with the shapeshifting, as I always like shapeshifting as a superpower, but never thought it gets used properly, especially in animation. But they go all the way and do pretty much everything you can do with it, using tons of animal forms which all move in unique ways, and also human forms that are just as funny. But not only comedically does it take full advantage, the film is very funny, but also dramatically and for the action, which is some of the most dynamic, vibrant, and memorable, with so many little details that only make the film better on rewatch. Also on the animation, points for utilizing another style for storytelling, as well as telling a pretty important backstory, all with no dialogue. I love it when films just let the animation and music carry the scene. It's like the first 10 minutes of Up, or the I'm Still Here scene from Treasure Planet. It's a beautiful scene and expertly done. God, even the lighting is really impressive, fitting the scene really well, but also illuminating the characters in some really dynamic ways, as well as doing some really creative things with the style, like having the lighting in the eyes be different shapes throughout the film. It's that level of detail and creativity that really pushes the visuals to another level. But good animation is nothing without good story and characters, and thankfully this film has that as well. Spoiler warning, again. This film focuses heavily on themes of prejudice and the issues behind institutions that uphold hate and fear instead of protecting people, which ties into the ongoing mystery relating both to Ballister and Nimona. There is a bad guy who's sort of a twist, in the director being the one who framed Ballister, although it's handled better than a lot of twist villains. For one, they're revealed about halfway through, and not at the end as a weak surprise, which gives more time with them as in the antagonist role, and also more time to explore their villain's motivations, believing that Ballister would have been the first crack in the wall that allowed so-called monsters to cause destruction, as we see where their prejudice and hate began, and how integral it is to the identity of this city. It's also great that even though there is a villain, the problems with the institutions are still addressed. They acknowledge systemic issues, and it's not just pinned on one asshole. That was kind of the problem with Zootopia. I like that movie, but it does boil down complex real-world issues to stopping one bad guy. This movie is much more adult and much more realistic with its portrayal and its message, which is becoming more and more relevant as time goes on, because we're evolving, but backwards. There's even arguably commentary on how youth is corrupted by bigoted adults into passing on prejudice they wouldn't already have. Actually, I think this movie has come out at the perfect time to represent some of the issues going on in society right now, and its commentary on persecuting anything different. Some of these lines hit really close to home, even with just what this film ironically had to go through to even get made. In fact, let's talk about that representation element. The creator of the comic refused to change the representation element and thankfully didn't compromise to get the film released, which paid off as this film is groundbreaking, as it's a widely distributed animated film that has a queer romance as a core part of the story. It's unapologetically a queer romance story, and that makes it a really important feature for representation in animation. And the romance is very well developed. Ballister and Ambrosius are very believable as a couple torn apart by being on different sides of a conflict that eventually pushes them closer together. They get exactly the right amount of screen time together and have really great chemistry, while also being multifaceted, engaging characters on their own. Ballister, played by Riz Ahmed, is the right amount of brooding but also driven, never letting up from his quest, willing to be flexible with exactly how he gets there. And Ambrosius, played by Eugene Lee Yang, is sympathetic and likable despite technically being in the antagonist role for most of the movie. They don't just make him a stubborn jerk who needs to learn the error of his ways. He's genuinely torn between what he knows in his heart and the skewed evidence being presented by the system he is trusted. And you feel that turmoil from both of them 100% conveyed. Nimona being canonically gender fluid doesn't play as big a part in the story, but it does strengthen the allegory even more and is addressed a fair bit, and definitely fits their character as it plays into the hyperactive and constantly changing nature of her character. But speaking of Nimona, she's a really great character too, which you'd hope seeing as her name is the title of the movie. Of course, their chaotic personality combined with their entertaining shapeshifting ability allows for a lot of laughs, but they're not just comic relief, there's actually a lot of character to them as well. Firstly, it's interesting to see a character who doesn't want to be a hero. We've seen Nimona wants to be a villain psychic because of trying to be friendly and having it be met with hostility and rejection from polite society. So she leans into being a menacing force of destruction because that gives her a sense of belonging, even though it still clearly hurts being perceived as a monster. It also contrasts nicely with Ballister, who doesn't want to be seen as a villain and is trying to do the right thing, while also being treated like the enemy. They're a very fun and entertaining duo, who will also have some adorable bonding moments. Not everything is explained, but I actually like that it's left kind of vague. It doesn't hold your hand through the story, you actually have to work to pick up the pieces as it goes on. Similarly, the message, while very clear, isn't hammered into the point where it becomes a hindrance. It's also very cleverly woven into the story, particularly Nimona's backstory, which, like I said, carries plenty of clever commentary on its own. But the bit that stands out to me the most is the lie the city is built on, that there never was any monster. The warrior legend is actually a myth, created by the friend turning on Nimona, who only ever wanted to belong. Actually a much better analogy for real-world prejudice, as it doesn't come from a rational place. There is no threat, it's just people being different and other people spreading fear and anger against something they don't understand. On that, it's also a movie that has a reason to be PG. This is real PG that actually would require parental guidance for younger audiences. I mean, one of the characters loses an arm at the start. There's attempted murder, persecution, a fair amount of mean-spirited humour, which is great, and even depression and attempted suicide. Yeah, suddenly Secret of Nim is looking a lot fluffier. In all seriousness, that moment is a seriously impactful one. I mean, the animation and music is gorgeous, obviously, but it doesn't overshadow the emotional weight of the scene. And the eventual triumph, but still painful sacrifice that it leads to in the end. This whole climax is fucking beautiful. Now I've gushed about the good things about the movie, I will acknowledge it's not absolutely perfect. The futuristic technology and the medieval fantasy look do gel surprisingly well, but the more contemporary tech like smartphones and regular cars and social media does feel a tad off in this world. Not every single joke lands, and there's a handful that just don't, but they're thankfully not too painful. And I would have liked some more development for the villain, who is only okay, but not super memorable personality-wise. Although this scene is legitimately cool and intimidating, she looks like Lex Luthor about to give Superman a kryptonite disemboweling. And I'm still split on the ending. After Nimona sacrifices herself, she doesn't come back, and it looks like they're going to stick with the death, which is a very bold and quite ballsy choice that I really respect. It looks like they weren't going to do the Frozen 2 fake sacrifice that gets undone. I thought it would genuinely stick with its decision, making it all the more impactful. But the last part of the ending seems to imply Nimona is back in some form. On the one hand, it's kept vague enough to be sort of open-ended, which I do like, and I do like the idea of seeing more of this character, but part of me does sort of think the ending would have been stronger had Nimona not come back, or at least not fully, but that could just be me. It doesn't ruin the amazing final stretch. And all that is just personal nitpicks. This movie is still so funny, so clever, and so incredibly well executed that I can't believe it almost didn't make it. This is proof that an uncompromising creative vision, given the chance to be fully realized, can turn out something truly special. This movie genuinely blew me away. I expected to enjoy it, but I didn't expect it to be this good. It broke so much new ground, it's practically in its own category. Well, sharing that category with Across the Spider-Verse. I'm going to dedicate a video to that movie too, as it's even better than the first one. But is it better than Nimona, or does Nimona take it? Honestly, they're both amazing feats of animation in their own unique ways. Why even compare them? Let's just be glad we got two incredible, groundbreaking features so close together. Go check this movie out if you haven't already, it's seriously worth it. And while I don't think they'll be quite as good as this, setting expectations, I'm still very excited to see the other films coming out soon. Elementals and Ruby Gilman both look very creative and fun, so I'll let you know what I think of those when I've seen them. I've also got a lot of videos planned in the hopefully near future. I think next I'll talk about Bob's Burgers, that's a return to form. Don't quote me on that though, I change my mind like all the time. But let me know what you want to see in the comments. Is there a movie or series of the animated variety that you especially want me to take a look at? Or even a related subject, as I'm trying a few new things out. Well, let me know, and go watch this movie, it's great.
Enemies with his dragon power.